Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Federation Hall. And if you're a student at the VCA, welcome back. Welcome to second semester. If you don't know me, my name's David Sequeira, and I'm the director of the Fiona and Sydney Meyer Gallery, and it's a real pleasure to welcome you here. And before I introduce our guest speaker, I invite you to ground yourself in the deep knowledge that long before the Victorian College of the Arts was thought of, or the University of Melbourne was considered, that the Bunurong and Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation for many, many generations practiced song and dance on this, in this place. They shared stories, made paintings, sculptures, practiced healing, raised families, and those traditions and rituals continue today. And it's with great joy and honour that we acknowledge their elders past, present, and those to come. Our guest speaker today, Jahkarli Romanis, is a proud Pitta Pitta woman, emerging artist, researcher and curator based on Kulin Land. Raised on Wurundjeri country in Torquay, Jahkarli moved to Naarm to continue her tertiary studies in 2018. After completing an honours in photography degree at RMIT in 2020, she commenced a PhD at Monash in 2021 through the Wominjeka Djeembana Research Lab. Her work is inextricably intertwined with her identity as a Pitta Pitta woman and explores the complexities of her lived experience and continuing negative impacts of colonisation in what is now known as Australia. Jahkarli's practice aims to subvert and disrupt colonial ways of thinking and image making. She utilises her research and artwork as tools for investigating biases encoded within imaging technologies. Through practice-led research, her PhD examines how large corporations like Google Earth image place and how Indigenous knowledges of place are not incorporated into such mapping technologies. Wherever you are, whether you're in Federation Hall or in Zoom land, please join me in making Jahkarli very, very welcome.
Thank you everyone for being here today, whether you're in the virtual world or joining in the room. To begin, I'd also like to acknowledge the ongoing custodians of the land on which I'm doing this talk on, belonging to the Bunurong and Wurundjeri Woiwurrung peoples of the Kulin Nations. I want to acknowledge and extend my deep respects to elders past and present. And I'd also like to pay my deep respects to the ongoing custodians of Pitta Pitta country, my elders and ancestors who this project is for. And I want to acknowledge their sacrifices. Without them, of course, I would not be here today. I also acknowledge all other First Nations folks joining today. Sovereignty was never ceded, always was and always will be. So I'm just going to open with this quote from Professor Brian Martin. Place is a geographical location, but also a way of thinking. It is land that has its own subjectivity. It is here that my practice articulates the subjectivity of country as a living thing. It informs us who and how we are. So I just want to kind of have this in the back of your minds as I'm sort of going through this project. And I'm going to begin by talking about my positionality, so where I'm from, who my family are, really grounding this project in my position because it's, yeah, the whole thing is predicated on who I am as a person. So this is sort of a short poem, I suppose. I'm the daughter of Felicitas Ernest. She is the daughter of Felicitas Ernest. She is the daughter of Dolly Creed. She is the daughter of Grace Creed. I grew up by the sea far southeast. My mother grew up in a small town up north. Her mother grew up on an island. Her mother was taken from country and her mother was on country. So this is my great-grandmother Dolly. She's 22 in this photo. This photo is by Norman Tyndale, who is an anthropologist that travelled through a series of Aboriginal communities, mapping genealogies and family trees, but also making photographs, taking lots of, materials as well. And this project, I'm always reflecting on her and her experiences, but also this particular photograph is very central to my work, and it'll keep coming up again and again through this talk today. So Pitta Pitta country is in Western Queensland. It's quite remote. There's a small town called Boulia on Pitta Pitta, and there's a population of less than 1,000 people there, so it's quite out there. And obviously I grew up down here, so my family's been dislocated from country for 3 generations. And really this project is about reconnecting and healing a lot of those lost connections. And that's not to say that I am not connected at all. I think it's about strengthening those connections. So this is Pitta Pitta. That's my mum at the bottom there, very little woman. Yeah, it's quite beautiful out there. Yeah, very lucky to, have travelled there a few times and have spent time there as well, which is really great. And this is my family. So I've got my sort of immediate family there, and then my grandmother holding me as a baby. A lot of this project is focused on my matrilineal line, and yeah, always reflecting on the matriarchs in my family, their experiences, but also my own experiences and how these sorts of things can be passed from generation to next. Another quote by elder and incredible thinker and researcher Arnie Mary Graham. There is no Aboriginal equivalent to the Cartesian notion of I think, therefore I am. But if there were, it would be I am located, therefore I am. Place, being, belonging, and connectedness all arise out of a locality in land. So this project really is about, utilising the camera or photography as a means of connection to country. So these photographs I made in 2019, which was the kind of beginning of this project. And really thinking about what it would mean to kind of reinsert myself into the landscape in a more physical sense. But also, through layering and using the, photograph and the camera as a tool to do that. And in kind of thinking about, self-portraits, and if we reflect on the history of anthropological research and archival photographs of Aboriginal people, there really was a power dynamic present. And within my own practice, I'm trying to be in control of these sort of 3 dividing lines that Ariella Azalea speaks about. She says, the camera draws 3 dividing lines. In time, between a before and an after. In space, between who and what is in front of the camera and who and what is behind it. And in the body politic, between those who possess and operate such devices and appropriate and accumulate their product, and those whose countenance, resources, or labour are extracted. So through that kind of, subverting this idea of the colonial gaze, I suppose, taking power of the camera, which, historically has been quite a violent tool, but also thinking, reflecting on this quote, and this has kind of been sort of in the back of my mind as this project has progressed over the last few years, thinking about how the camera can actually, rather than be a tool of slicing and dividing, how it can be a tool of bringing things together. And my practice is really about that. It's thinking about how the camera can be a tool of connecting things together rather than making divisions. So these works, again, were sort of in response to archival photographs, you know, reflecting on Tyndale's work. Of course, I've got, you know, family members that have been documented and exist in these archives. And so thinking about their experiences. But also, again, using layering as a tool of kind of bringing things together and a tool of connecting again. So these are self-portraits that I've layered with photographs of country. And yeah, I guess it's also a reflection on, you know, this sort of disconnection that's taken place, or this displacement that's taken place over the last 3 generations in my family. And really trying to, yeah, reflect on that and how that affects, you know, my identity and how I feel about myself, and the sort of ongoing traumas that have been passed down. This is just presented in a show. I kind of constantly sort of thinking about the way that I'm presenting my work, and it's funny, sort of, I'm working with photographs and, you know, moving image, but increasingly I'm finding that the way that I'm presenting the work kind of isn't enough. So it's also reflecting on the downfalls of photographs and the camera, and what it can do, but also what it can't do. So yeah, it's kind of an ongoing dialogue that I have with myself about what it's like to engage with these mediums, but also how they're received in different spaces as well. So this is the card that Tyndale took of my great-grandmother, and most people that, you know, have been documented in this archive have a card like this. I always kind of go back and forth about whether to show it or not, because I don't want to give it a platform, but it's important also to acknowledge that, you know, whilst I'm working with these photographs, it's, you know, it's come out of a context and out of a particular set of circumstances, which is important for the project as well. But yeah, when I sort of found these photographs as well, which was online, I was at the same age as Dolly at this point, so 22. And yeah, it's tricky sort of looking at them. Last year, I was very lucky to actually go to South Australia. All of the Tyndale archive is held there, and I spent some time with the photographs and the documents, and, you know, there are sort of hair samples and things like that, which I didn't want to look at. But yeah, I guess thinking about also the materiality of the card, it's quite small, like it's only about this big, and thinking about when the last time someone was that actually held Dolly. Yeah, so it was a lot, even thinking about the way that they were stored. They're all kind of squashed together in this little container. But there really is just so much that he kind of collected over that period of time. And whilst I, you know, believe some of his practices were quite problematic, it's also about recognizing that, you know, I actually wouldn't know where I come from or who I am without his work. I wouldn't know what my great-grandmother looks like without these photographs, albeit they are, you know, very staged and very mugshot-like. Yeah, it's emotionally quite fun to sort of work with these things, but equally, you know, these are real people that have been photographed. They are my family, and therefore I think it's important that I work with them. So in saying that, I sort of used Dolly's portrait and layered her with images of Pitta Pitta as a means of kind of submersing her back to country and bringing her home after being stolen. And yeah, I guess I'm careful to kind of say that Dolly didn't have any agency, because she did. She had autonomy, she had humanity. She wasn't a passive subject, she was a real person. And I think my work is sort of about really highlighting that and not sort of championing this like power dynamic of she was, you know, a subject of Tyndale's. Yeah. So a lot of my work is also about mapping as well. Increasingly, I'm finding everything as a map when you think about it. And this is a family tree map which Tyndale did. And yeah, I guess all of these sort of interlinking layers create the map of my positionality, I suppose, of who I am as a person. But I just thought I'd drop that in so you can kind of get a sense of the sort of, yeah, work that he did. And so in 2020, I started my honours, and at this point in time, I actually hadn't worked with, you know, the archive. So I'm kind of jumping around a little bit, but it's all interconnected. So, you know, it was kind of I'll just play these while I talk. It was kind of the beginning of, you know, the pandemic, and travel was not possible at that point in time. So I thought I'd actually have a look at what Pitta Pitta looks like virtually. And this is what I found. This is Pitta Pitta country as represented by Google Earth. And it was interesting, actually. I was like, oh, that's really weird. A lot of the kind of visual data has been updated since, you know, 2007. So yeah, I mean, there's kind of like a few photographic technologies that are sort of employed within Google Earth. You know, you've got the kind of sat-nav aerial imaging, which is sort of rooted in this military industrial complex, and then you've got this street view surveillance that kind of takes place. And then this sort of, there's kind of like a third space, which is, oops. Yeah, I'll just go back, which is in this video here, where it's kind of an in-between of sorts. And what I became interested in is how, I suppose, land is shown in this third space. I mean, we look at the sky, they've got like the gradient going on, and it's very neat, but also quite sterile. And what I sort of came to understand was there really wasn't, you know, any incorporation or acknowledgement of, you know, Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people having such an important connection with country. And so this work, Waddy Tree, is kind of speaking to that, or a comment on that. The Waddy Tree, there's a crowberry tree on country, which I was able to sort of find in Google Earth. And its representation in Google Earth is really this like very dark shadow, which the tree itself is kind of sitting on top of. And then I've laid a photograph of the tree on top of it within its positioning in Google Earth. And so I really wanted to just kind of comment that this is here, that, you know, Pitta Pitta people have such an important connection with country, and that there are different knowledges that exist when thinking about mapping and land. I think it's often thought of that, you know, these mapping technologies or Western mapping technologies are scientific and neutral and objective, when actually there are very subjective decisions made about what is included in these maps and what isn't, and what knowledges are included and what aren't. And I kind of think of it as sort of being, you know, another way of trying to prove the myth of terra nullius, so that, you know, this was no man's land, which is, as we all know, absolutely incorrect. Yeah, okay, moving on. So these images that I'm sort of flicking through at the minute are kind of within that sort of third space that I was talking about. And I think as well, we kind of expect these technologies to sort of operate in very functional ways, but they don't. And what else is interesting is it really is just kind of data input that glitches and doesn't work all the time. So I've kind of been interested in that, and seeing these glitches as kind of tears in this like narrative of terra nullius, essentially. But also kind of reflecting on, you know, permissions, I suppose. Thinking about, you know, essentially Google Earth has kind of gone and photographed literally everywhere and published it online for anyone to look at. And yeah, I find that interesting and potentially problematic, but I don't have any solutions at this stage. So I also think, you know, I've had questions of like, oh, like, well, what would collaboration look like? You know, if Google Earth was to kind of collaborate with, you know, traditional owners and whatnot. And I don't think that collaboration is possible. I think there's just completely different understandings of place, and also traditional owners might not want their knowledges published in this particular way. So I think I'm just, you know, through my work kind of pointing the finger, I suppose, and, you know, trying to open up conversations about these technologies and what they do, and how we can kind of be more critical of them. So I did a residency for Melbourne Art Library last year, and they sort of asked me to kind of intervene in their collection of books, which I was kind of like, I don't really know, like I've never done anything like that before, and found it sort of tricky to begin with. But then, you know, I sort of came to the understanding that all of the work that I'm doing is with archives. Like if we think about Google Earth as an archive, essentially, Tyndale's work is an archive, my own photographs is, you know, an archive of sorts, and how I'm kind of like communicating, or, you know, I guess interacting with all of those different things. But anyway, for Melbourne Art Library, yeah, they asked me to kind of intervene with their collection. And it's, you know, it's a very small library, like it's mostly volunteer run. And a lot of the books, sorry, that they have in their collection, there's not really like a rigorous process of deciding like what should be on the shelf and what shouldn't. So I found a kind of like high school textbook from the 60s talking about Aboriginal art, which, yeah, I mean, a few things obviously that I disagreed with, but I sort of engaged in this, you know, notion of palimpsest, which again, I think I use a lot in my work, you know, layering, so you can see what existed before, but there's, yeah, an interaction that kind of takes place with the layer that's kind of on top. But then I, you know, kind of went on this like thinking about archives, but also knowledge, different knowledges that have kind of been more important than others in certain circumstances, and what happens when new knowledge comes out. What do you do with the old stuff that doesn't necessarily hold up? And so this was kind of my way of saying, well, yeah, it's interacting with these ideas that I disagree with, but not also erasing them. I don't yeah, I don't think that's constructive or a way of kind of progressing if we're sort of erasing things. Instead, I think having dialogues and interacting with them is a lot more constructive. These are just some stills from a short film called Cache, which is about memory, kind of reflecting on Dolly's experiences of, you know, being taken. She was sent to Palm Island, which is an island off the north coast of Townsville, and that was, you know, one of the largest kind of Aboriginal reserves at the time during, you know, under the Act. So thinking about that and thinking about my own memory and how memory kind of ties in with photographs, you know, often I'll think about a time and I won't think of being in that time, I'll think of a photograph of that time. So it's kind of like the intersection of those things and how photography becomes an aid for memory. So that's what that's about. And then this last work that I'm going to show is a new work, and I recently came across a Pitta Pitta dictionary, and Pitta Pitta language is considered a sleeping language, which means it's not fluently spoken. It's, you know, kind of broken because of the effects of, you know, colonisation. But I'm trying really hard to learn as much as I can. And, you know, another aspect of my practice is poetry as well. So for me, sort of being able to use my own language in that process has been really special. I'll just play it. Turupu bends atmosphere. Mulka waves slowly. Mai shifts below. These roads less travelled have stories and minds of their own. Does this steady curve recognise me? Has she been here too? I'm on the ground, listening for her. A whisper in smoke, in Chinpi, in dark. A lick of parachi to rekindle the burn. How she must yearn. I keep being told about intuition. How does it feel? Winter, do you feel? Wapa, Wantili, Erka. I'm getting better at it. Pricked up and ready. She teaches me daily how to hold it. Like the calmness of my mother's tone, her mother's tone. A soft but knowing embrace, one they can only give. Posture steady and firm. How she must yearn. Oh, how she must yearn. Cool. I should have actually just given a bit of context to that work. I went to country earlier this year and I sort of have begun a process of, you know, reconnecting with, you know, kin and traditional owners on Pitta Pitta, and was very lucky to bring my mum and my aunt along as well. So yeah, I guess this project as a whole is more about kind of being able to share this with my family as well, and, you know, doing a PhD and whatnot. It's also about kind of sneakily taking resources or openly taking resources and sharing them with my family so we can begin a process of kind of healing, which, as we all know, takes a long time. So thanks for listening.
Let's see if the lights are coming. The lights coming up? Oh, they are. Hang on, but wait, we can't see you, can we? How about we do that? Oh, look, everybody's on. Firstly, Jahkarli, thank you so much for your generosity and, sharing your family with us and taking us through your work. We really, on behalf of everyone, just thank you so much for bringing that to us today. It's been a joy. And I also want to take a moment to a big shout out to the staff of Melbourne City Council, who many of whom are here. Thank you for being here and thank you for bringing Jahkarli to our notice. So we really appreciate you. They've been a supporter of Jahkarli's work for some time. We've got time for some questions. So if anyone has a question for Jahkarli, let us know. Yeah, please, Tristan.
That was great, thanks, Jahkarli. One thing, but something that really stuck out for me was that question, and it's something that I've had before as well. It's like, what's the end point? Like, give us a solution, give us the means to collaborate. And you spoke about that there could be, and I think there often is, like this resistance from mob who are being like asked to collaborate with Google, for instance. And I guess in thinking about the resistance to collaboration, I'm wondering about this because I'm doing my PhD as well. How do you reconcile that when, I guess, working in the space of the university, it's like obviously you use funds to do work with family and all that, but when the university is in the business of accumulating knowledge and has a strong history of very violently accumulating knowledge from and bodies from Indigenous people. Yeah, I was like, how does that, like, do you have a way of working through that tension, or like how does that sit for you?
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge question. And yeah, I'm very lucky at the minute to be working through Wominjeka Djeembana at Monash because of that. It's the first time I felt protected from a lot of the, to be quite frank, shit that you deal with in these spaces. I'm still kind of thinking about that and working that out. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think it's also about demanding better. And I think where I'm at currently, in the lab, we're in a process of doing that, demanding better. But also, I don't want to kind of step away from those spaces because ultimately we need more mob in them to make them safe for others to come through and be in those spaces. And that's not to say that everything is validated through these sort of Western institutions. Like knowledge exists, it doesn't have to be sort of funneled through these places. Yeah, so I'm still working that out myself, really. But it's a big question and a good question, and it's good to kind of talk about it with people. And yeah.
Can I have a follow-up?
Of course.
Great response. Totally get that position, and I think I'm sort of similar in my own views. But just because I know a lot of people here might not be familiar with it, and I'm not really myself, but could you give us a small overview of what Wominjeka Djeembana is?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So Wominjeka Djeembana is a research lab dedicated to Indigenous creative practice. It has been running for like 4 years now, but it's very community driven in, Indigenous methodologies, driven through relationality. Yeah, so it's kind of, Professor Brian's the director, and he's kind of our front man. He'll fight anyone, as we found. which is awesome because you need that sort of staunchness when you're in these spaces. But he's also so knowledgeable about the system itself. You know, he's been in it for so long and knows how to kind of manipulate it in the way that it sort of needs to be. But yeah, I mean, it's not only, First Nations folks from Australia. There's people from Aotearoa, there's people from Turtle Island. It's, yeah, kind of like crossing borders and working together and making cool stuff. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Hi. Thanks for your talk. Yeah, but a question about your use of photography and when you were showing your photographs, like the images are installed in a gallery with frames around them. You said you were finding them like lacking or something, or they weren't kind of doing it for you as much. I was just wondering if you could kind of expand on what it was that you felt was missing, or just what you were trying to do with your practice.
Yeah, I mean, those photos were from the first show that I'd ever been in. And I think there's often an assumption that, to look professional, things need to be printed and framed and in a space on a white wall hung in a particular way. But yeah, I'm slowly kind of recognizing the downfalls of that. And that's not to say that it doesn't work in some instances. I think for particular works it's kind of okay, but yeah, I'm not really sure. Moving image also kind of works, but it's, yeah, I think I'm sort of looking to try and find something that enables more of an engagement to take place, whether that be through, I don't know, VR or something more like bodily encompassing, and something that highlights the relationality of like self and place. Yeah, I'm still working that out, but it's a good question.
Yeah, anyone else? Yeah, please.
I just wondered if you've been thinking about the knowledge shifted from Pitta Pitta to the Palm Island, the country itself was so different, plus all the other things that would have happened, exploring sort of that in your work at some stage.
As in like her journey from?
Well, I just think there's just, from my point of view, just looking at it, the sadness of going from, say, a dry country to what would have been, I presume, it's Palm Island. I haven't been there, but it must be a very tropical thing. So everything is so different for you, apart from being now on a settlement and the journey and things like that. So I don't know. There just seems to be a lot of things that could be sort of explored in terms of the impact also from the family.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm always reflecting on that. I've kind of considered this dislocation I've considered Dolly's experience through the eyes of her mother as well, thinking about what that looks like. And, I have written a couple of poems, which I normally do share, but I sort of feel like today I don't have the strength to kind of share them because they are quite emotional. But yeah, certainly, I mean, they're in very different places, of course, Palm Island and Pitta Pitta. And again, kind of thinking about maps and like mapping her journey, for lack of a better word, from one place to the next, and how, and my grandmother was born, and then my mum was born, and now I'm down here. So it's like, it really does form a picture, thinking about those things. But yeah, hopefully I'd love to expand and think more about what that would have been like for her.
Well, Jahkarli, just a big thank you for being here, and thanks for opening Art Forum Semester 2 for us at the VCA. And a big thank you to Jahkarli, please. And then an announcement, just in case you don't know, we have an opening tonight. The Majlis Travelling Scholarship 2023 opens tonight at 5:30. It's the work of 19 of our graduating third years, and you'll all be very, very welcome. We'll see you then, and we'll see you next Thursday for Art Forum with Janelle Evans speaking. All right, thanks everyone.